Out with the old, in with the new. Hey guys and gals, welcome to Garage Gear. I'm JB. Just so we're clear here, I purchased this EARTHWAY 2150 50-pound commercial grade broadcast spreader with my own money. Let's get it together. Check this out. Damaged upon arrival. This might be the handle here. Looks like it's kind of chewed up already. And I hope we're not missing any parts. It looks like this one can come right out. Maybe we'll put the EARTHWAY warranty to the test here. All right, let's get her open. There we go. Check out how they pack this thing. Wheel number one, that's actually stuck. Come on, there we go. Wheel number two, and then we got the bucket, which is very, very lightweight. Some extra cod bod, some handlebar brackets, and these are the control rods, it looks like, and maybe the axles. Then we got our impeller that goes on the bottom of the spreader. This is our cover that goes and rests inside the bucket. This helps strain everything and then also helps keep things from popping out too. And it looks like they even threw us a clear cover to go over it, so in case it's raining, hey, this keeps your fertilizer dry inside the bucket. Kind of cool. Then we got the bracket that goes on the bottom of the bucket. We have one lock nut. That's it? This big bag? Okay, then we have our gearbox. We do have our owner's manual, and then I have the control mechanism which controls your spread rate, but I only have one lock nut here and two bolts to mount it on, so maybe that's the other missing lock nut. We'll see. Then I like how they did this. They got some bushings, some screws, some other nuts and bolts. Kind of handy how they laid this out for you. Nice job with this, EARTHWAY. And then the piece that I'm concerned about, yeah, that took a royal beating right there. Did a dog get a hold of this thing or what? That's pretty chewed up. The other one seems fine. Look at that one. See? We'll have to see what we can do about that. I found at the bottom of the box another lock nut and a washer. Something must have broken open here. So we got the bucket and the hardware laid out on the bench, and then we got all the other parts right out of the box, ready to go. And to help this video do better with the YouTube algorithm right out of the box, would you mind hitting that like button? Thank you very much. Now, according to the owner's manual, we have to start here with the bucket, and nice job with the McDonald's coloring there, EARTHWAY. That is highly visible, I'll give them that. I'm gonna set the bucket down like this. And then from here, this horseshoe bracket basically is gonna lay on top like that. It is a little wobbly. Then they gave us 4 plastic screws, which look like this. These are gonna go into the bucket themselves, right in each hole. And it's a good idea not to use an impact driver on this because you are going into plastic, so it's best to just tighten these up by hand. Come on. Oh yeah, that's the one I need right there. Tighten it down. Once you get the first one in, you're good. It'll stay there. Make sure they're snug. You don't want to over tighten them. That's good. And the last one. Good. Bracket secure. Next, we're going to put together our gearbox assembly. And if you notice, there's a pin up here at the top. Make her spin, baby. We're going to remove this pin. We'll need that later. And then from here, we're going to take this one rod with the 2 holes on the end, and we're going to slip this through. So we got to kind of point it down and then up, and then just kind of center it like that. And then from here, we're going to take our impeller, and if you notice the bottom side, the hole has a unique shape, and we have a flared out rod right here sticking out of our gearbox. We're going to take this, slide it all the way down, and just press it into place. So you'll hear it kind of click, and that's good to go. Next, you want to notice that the front of the gearbox says front. That's important. And then you want to line that up with the front or forward facing end of your spreader. So we're going to line these up, and we're just going to stick this right down into the center hole, and we're just going to slide it on down. Doesn't this whole thing right now kind of remind you of the slap chop from back in the day?
Slap chop. You're going to be in a great mood all day because you're going to be slapping your troubles away.
Next up, we got one of our 1.5-inch bolts along with our lower handlebar frame bracket. We're going to take this and we're going to line up this bar that we just put onto our gearbox, line these holes up so the bolt's going to go through our black handlebar like so, and then into this swinging bracket right here, and then into this bar up top. So I'm just going to thread that in lightly. Boom, boom, boom. Just get that in place. And from here, I'm going to spin the bucket around. I'm going to take my other lower handlebar frame. I'm going to line up the holes of these guys right here with my 1.5-inch bolt from the other side, line everything up, and then send it into the rod sticking out of our gearbox. I'm just going to thread them in loosely, give it a few twists. I'll tighten this all down later once I get everything in place. Now from here, we got to start connecting these parts of the frame. So I'm going to take my 2.5-inch bolt, slide it through, On the back goes a washer and then our lock nut. Coming over here to this side, slide in my 2.5-inch bolt, washer on the back, and then our lock nut. Now, before I go ahead and tighten everything up, what I'm gonna do is slip my wheel axle through all these components. If we notice here on the end of this axle, there's a hole that's only a short distance away from the end here of this axle. And then if I flip to the other end, there's a hole that's a little farther away from the end of the axle. So that's important. Now what I'm gonna do is with the bucket facing me, with its logo facing me, I'm gonna slip this through the hole into the gearbox and then through the other hole and kind of line up the wings here that are in the middle of this axle in the center of that gearbox like that. So everything's all nice and lined up. From here, it's time to insert some bearings or bushings. If we look here, this is what they call their bearing. It has a little ridge here on the side, and that's gonna line up with a little ridge here that's on the side of this frame. So what I'm gonna do is just slide this over, line up my edge, get it in that little slot. Then I'm gonna come over here to this side. Same thing, taking our bearing with that little edge. There's a little notch here on the bottom of our frame. I'm gonna slide that right on in, get everything where it needs to be. There we go, cool. Now what we have here is a bushing, and it looks a little bit longer than the bearing that we put in. Bearing, bushing, they're both made of plastic here. So we're just gonna slide it onto the end. I'm gonna get you in here so you can see a little bit better. I'm just going to insert it just like that, press it all the way in. And then from here, this bushing goes into the other side, into the bearing. It may take a little effort to push it on, just like that. Now that we have the axle in place, now's a good time to go ahead and tighten everything down. Let me guess, 10 mil? Of course it's a 10 mil. I'm gonna use my impact driver here. You can use a socket wrench, whatever you got, just don't lose that 10 millimeter. Now these bolts here at the top. That is pretty darn solid. Ooh. Girl, you are tight down there. So now that everything's tight up here, it's time to pop the wheels on. So now one thing that I noticed here that the manual is not very clear on is that you have your long hole here and your short hole here on the sides of this wheel axle. And they say that this long hole should be on the right side because as we insert our wheel on, boom, this should line right up with that hole on the inside. And then we're gonna take our spring pin, insert that through all the holes, and then simply just lock it on down. That wheel is now locked, and you can see that our impeller is now spinning. And then from here, we're gonna go over to this side and slide this wheel all the way on. I'm gonna take our hog pin, stick that in all the way down, and then simply snap it into place. So now on this unit, one wheel becomes your drive wheel and then one wheel is free spinning. This allows you to pivot and turn the wheels in different directions, so that way you can easily navigate this spreader around your yard. All right, so now I'm gonna flip this baby over. Cool, will it fit on my workbench? Barely. Next up on the list, what we're gonna do here is connect our gauge and handlebar assembly. And what's kind of cool here is they have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes, and this is for adjusting for your own personal height. So if you are taller than 6'3", you can lengthen this all the way out and set this to the lowest setting to give yourself that added length here. Pretty cool. Now, if you're shorter, you can raise it all the way up. Now, if you're below 6'3", from what I heard, you wanna be somewhere in the middle, and that's where I'm gonna set mine. Now, they also give you this block here, and the reason for this is it's gonna slide right inside here, inside the handlebars, because what's gonna start to happen is, as you turn this unit a lot around your yard, you're gonna start to flex this metal a bit here, and this is gonna help prevent this from moving too much. So we're just gonna take this, we're gonna put this in just like that. So what I'm gonna do here is just line the holes up in that center block, push this all the way through. I'm gonna put my washer on the other end, here we go, and then thread it on with my lock nut. Just like that, that'll hold things in place. Then from here, I'm gonna take my remaining 2-inch bolts, slide those into my gauge, and then feed those into the holes like so. Could almost use another set of hands to do this, and then feed this one through all the way, and then we're gonna lock these ones down. Slip on our lock nuts. Cool, we're gonna tighten these right on down. While this is kind of resting here on the workbench, I'm just gonna tighten this on down. Cool. I do like how this sits perfectly straight right here. You turn from the side, there's no other brackets, but it stays put, which is really impressive. From here, the top one with the plastic wedge inside. That right there This is a pretty solid frame. So what I've done here now is I've inserted the upper handlebar frame into the lower handlebar frame. I've inserted my bolts. Everything's nice and tight. Everything's lined up. And I'm gonna take this rod here, and this rod has two ends. If we notice, it's got this half diamond shape end here, and then this 90-degree end here. We're gonna be working with this diamond shaped end here first. I'm gonna come in here to the bottom, and this right at the bottom is our stop plate. This is what prevents all the fertilizer from coming out. I'm gonna take this end, stick it through the hole closest to me. It kind of has that key shape to it, and it's just gonna rest there, just like that. And then from here, this is my pivot bracket. This is gonna sit right here and help us make our adjustments. I'm going to slide this up underneath, like so, and then I'm going to let it rest here on these bolts like that. I'm gonna take my washers and pop those on, followed by my lock nuts. And then from here, I'm gonna tighten these down by hand because what's happening is this lower bracket here tends to kind of shift like this a little bit. So I wanna make sure everything lines up or I'll be driving crooked across my lawn. So I'm just gonna tighten this down by hand, get them snug, that way I can make any final adjustments. Definitely a good step to do by hand. We're done. So now if we notice how this whole bracket's coming together, as I push, it opens and closes that stop plate. I'm gonna come up to the top now, and we notice that this bar has this flat ridge like this, and then we have this key-shaped hole here. I'm gonna insert it through, and then I can pull it down and make adjustments. This rod is going to insert itself into this hole, and then on the bottom here goes our lock nut that they gave us in the separate bag. This way it doesn't unthread itself as you're bumping along your lawn. So now we got this spreader down on the ground. It's time to calibrate this gal. Notice I have this adjustable stopper right here. I'm gonna set it all the way back and tighten it down. I'm gonna take my lever here and I'm gonna pull it all the way back as far as it'll go. And what we should see down here inside these holes is absolutely no yellow blocking them. So what I'm gonna do is stick my finger in and just kind of push this underneath the red bucket. So I really shouldn't see any yellow. That looks pretty good from my angle. That didn't throw anything off here, so we're good. Then down here, what I'm going to do is tip this up and then thread this bolt down, keeping that pretty snug. And then I'm gonna thread my lock nut here at the bottom up to it. I'm gonna hold this one in place and just tighten it down. And good. That's really tight down there, that's good. Now you can see as I move this down here, it pivots nicely, just the way we want it. And then looking inside the bucket, as I move the lever, boom, it opens up all the way and then closes all the way. Perfect. And then as I check my side spread control, that should only block 2 holes. Looks great, opens back up, no problem there. Calibrating this spreader was super easy, not too hard to do, and you can always adjust it or readjust it down the road if you need to. Last step, we're gonna install our dispersing pin. We're just gonna line up our holes, feed it in, just like that. This will help agitate any product at the bottom of the bucket. Now the very last thing I'm gonna do is check the PSI of these tires. On the sidewall it says max load is gonna be 30 PSI. We're gonna fill them right up to that and call it a day. 30 PSI. And for added decoration, we're gonna throw in our screen. And they gave us this cool protective bonnet to put on top just in case of a rainy day. Pretty cool. Now that entire assembly process took about 45 minutes to complete, and I did have to go back and forth with the owner's manual a couple of times because the wheel axle down at the bottom, the specific directions on which way it had to go with the long hole and the short hole weren't very clear. But this is why we played with Legos as kids, right? So we don't get so frustrated with things like this as adults. Here's a quick few facts about this EARTHWAY 2150 spreader. First off, this entire spreader, from the tires all the way up to the top of the tubular handlebars, is 100% American made. None of that globally sourced material nonsense going on here. It has their patented 3-hole drop system with side spread control to help accurately spread material across your yard and to reduce it as you pass along edges. And talk about heavy duty construction here. A steel T-handle, an epoxy coated frame, thick studded 13-inch tires. You can spread fertilizer, seed, and salt with this gal, and it comes with a 1-year warranty, which I will be putting to the test. This is why we spend the big bucks on this kind of stuff, because we want something more robust. Now I got one of my favorite fertilizers to throw down, so if you're ready, I'm ready, let's go test it out. Now, as you're watching me throw fertilizer across my lawn, for those curious as to the fertilizer that I'm using at this point in the spring, it's purely organic lawn food. You can find this at Home Depot or on Amazon, and I'll have it linked down below in the description. What's really cool about this fertilizer is it smells just like fresh bread. It has a 1002 NPK rating. It won't burn the lawn, and it feeds the lawn slowly over time, so I don't get that crazy overgrowth that you get with a normal synthetic fertilizer in the spring. It's not made with human poop like some other brands, and it turns the lawn a nice dark green color. I am going to do a full review of this spreader in the coming weeks as I get a few miles on her. Why did you choose that spreader? Well, I chose this specific spreader because many fertilizer bags are now starting to show EARTHWAY spreader settings on them. Kind of like how Scott's is on every bag of fertilizer since the dawn of time. EARTHWAY is now putting their flag in the ground, so to speak, which is kind of nice to see. And this makes bag rates easier to follow. And the second reason that I chose this spreader is because they're built well and they hold up. Prices of these are on the higher end, and they're definitely a buy once, cry once kind of purchase. More than likely, you'd probably end up buying a bunch of those cheaper Scott spreaders in the time that you owned just this one EARTHWAY spreader. My old EARTHWAY 2600 A+ spreader is over 10 years old and still works great. The 2150 here is just a slightly bigger setup. Every component on this unit is sturdy and strong, and this will easily last me the next 10 years and beyond. If you're interested in checking out the EARTHWAY 2600 A+, I did many videos using this spreader. I'll have those linked down below in the description, along with my full lawn fertilizing playlist. Real quick, I figured I'd give you guys and gals an update on the warranty issue with the handlebar on this new EARTHWAY spreader. I contacted the warranty department over at EARTHWAY. I went on their website, I called the number that was at the bottom of the screen. From there, they said it's real easy. Just take a few pictures of the issue and then attach that in an email to support@earthway.com. Then I got to give them a real quick brief description of the issue, along with a photo of the receipt or a screenshot from where I purchased it, such as Amazon. Then from there, I was told it's about a 24-hour turnaround time, so I should be hearing back from them relatively quick here and should have a new handlebar on that spreader. For more cool garage gear content, click or tap the screen right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the garage.